Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here to give you guys my Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 8, the mid-season premiere. And this episode is called Grotesque, which I've never actually seen this word right now, so I actually had to look up how to pronounce it, but whatever. This episode came out on August 21st, 2016, and essentially I'm just going to pretty much talk about what happened. Pretty much what happened with this episode, it was pretty much the quest of Nick getting to Tawana. I don't know if that's how you say Tawana, but that's how I'm gonna say it. Um, essentially, that was pretty much the episode. I could pretty much turn off this review and not really say anything else, but I will break down the episode more in depth because I'm just that type of person. But that's essentially what this whole episode was about. But Nick is talking to some of the survivors from the compound, and they're gonna go meet up with their ex-husband and the kid's father. And Nick wants to go somewhere where there's gonna be people like the compound, where there's some type of group, some type of community, and she tells him to go to Tawana, and she gives him supplies and things like that. And essentially, the first half of the episode is Nick going on this journey. It showed us a lot of flashbacks throughout. This was the first one. This was Nick and his girlfriend, who looked very familiar, and obviously, if you remember the first episode of Fear the Walking Dead ever, there was a reason why this woman was recognizable. But they were just kind of talking about preparing for rehab, because they were in a drug house, and they had to practice their interviews and stuff. And Nick's girlfriend, who I don't even think we find out her name, yeah, he doesn't tell us her name, and she asks him what made him an addict, and Nick kind of took his frustrations out because they were doing role playing, and she was pretending to be his dad, and this is before his dad had passed away or any of that. So Nick lashes out in frustration and talks about how his dad really doesn't pay much attention to him. And I did like this scene a lot. I thought it was really well done. And then Nick finds an old abandoned house or whatever, and he goes and sleeps there for the night and takes his supplies and stuff like that, because this has like all his food and water that's going to help him get him through these next few days. And this woman comes in, and we find out she had I think like a bat or something like that, but or like a lead pipe, and pretty much scares him out of the house, because since she doesn't speak English, she thought Nick was just invading the house, essentially trespassing. And Nick, when he goes to grab his bag, the woman keeps threatening to hit him, so Nick has to leave without his stuff. So obviously, we knew that this episode, because obviously this had to happen to kind of keep this episode going. So the rest of the episode is Nick trying to find food and stuff like that. He finds like a bottle of water in a car where the infected is, and then he grabs a radio and tries to see if he can hear any radio, and then these guys with guns come up and kill the infected, because one was walking over towards Nick, and this person murders somebody that was in the car that was alive. So Nick thinks this is messed up, and the radio signal is trying to find a signal, and this makes the people realize that Nick's there, so they start shooting at him, and Nick escapes. And then I did like the scene where he took a cactus and tried to like drink the water out of it, and then he picked all the pricklies off of it and ate it, but he throws it up, which means he didn't really get anything from it because he just threw it back up. And since Nick doesn't have any water, he pisses in his hands and drinks his piss, which I don't really think you would get anything from that either, considering the fact that you're just pretty much drinking what you've already taken out. But I don't know. That's just me. And then Nick falls asleep toward leading up against this abandoned car, which everybody knew was going to happen. Then he has another flashback where Madison and him and stuff are gonna go over with the rehab people about how he's gonna get released, and then Nick and Madison get left alone though, and Nick questions where his dad is, and Madison reveals that his dad died. We find out he died in a car crash. I did like this scene because I guess this gave us maybe a little bit of light about why Nick became an addict, because had maybe we were supposed to think that had his dad still been alive and been at this meeting, maybe Nick would have changed his ways, but I don't know. I did like to see Madison this vulnerable and stuff though, because we've never seen her this way before, so that was kind of nice. And Nick's girlfriend gets concerned, and we see Nick screaming. I did like when he screamed to cut away. I like it when they do that type of stuff in TV shows and stuff. And when the Nick pops out of his flashback because these dogs come up and attack Nick, and one of them bites him in the leg, and Nick throws dirt into him, and Nick climbs up top of the abandoned truck or abandoned car, and then a herd of the infected come up, and the dogs go and attack them, and the infected eat the dogs, and this ends up, Nick's obviously relieved to see this happen, so since they just attacked him, and then Nick's moving around on the car, and he hears and it makes a noise, like if you move on a car, and since it's metal, it makes a noise, and this lures one of the infected, so all the infected go attack Nick, but then they hear gunshots go off, and they go towards the gunshots because it lures the infected, and Nick then starts to eat part of the dogs, and one of the infected just happened to be crawling there, and Nick uses his belt to wrap his wound around it, so that way it doesn't bleed out. And Nick walks among the infected, which I thought was nice. And then I did like how he was having flashbacks about how he was saying that he should, about Madison and his girlfriend and stuff, talking to him and stuff. I thought that was clever. And then the other people, the people that Nick had seen earlier in this scene or this episode, pop back up, and they start shooting all the infected, and one of them knows Nick's in there, and drops his bullets, or his gun, and his bullets fall out, and the guy picks up his gun and tries to reload it, but he gets bitten too early, and then the other guy gets bitten by the infected, but since the other guy was in a truck, he just drives away. And I did like how Nick pretended like he was going to go eat these guys, because that didn't give away where he was. But Nick is pretty much on the verge of dying, pretty much. And he has one final flashback. It shows him and his girlfriend at that church from, the first episode ever of this show. And they talk about Nick is reading this book that helped him connect with his dad, and she talked about how she was possibly going to read this book too, and it's very significant because she never read it, because I think the next day was when Nick woke up and found her infected. So yeah, and then these people see Nick, and they want to help him, but Lucy, whose real name is Lusana Galvez, I don't know if that's how you say that, but I'm just going to go with that, who is played by Danae Garcia. And she doesn't want to help him, but one of the guys is able to talk her into it. So Nick, it starts raining, and Nick gets happy about this because this means he can have some water. Then Nick goes towards the town, and he tries to find stuff to tape up his wound, and he does. And then the group finds Lusana's group finds him. Well, Lusana's, I don't know how you say it. And they don't speak English, but they think at first it's a infected bite, but then they find out no, it's a dog bite, and he says dog in Spanish, which is perro, I think. And they take him back, and they find the doctor, and the doctor treats Nick. They have some nice small talk, and it makes Nick look like that he's still not afraid to be in the dead and stuff like that. And then the doctor asks Nick why he wanted to go to Tijuana, and Nick says he wants to find some type of community where the dead isn't thought of as dead. And I did kind of like how they got the Walking Dead quote in there, where he said, "Why are you walking with the dead?" But they said it in a way where they referenced the Walking Dead, so I thought that was kind of clever. And then the guy takes Nick, and we find out Nick's in this community, and Nick's kind of happy with what he sees, and that's pretty much how the episode ends. Overall, I didn't really think this was a bad episode at all. I thought it was fine. I think what was disappointing about this was it really didn't probably need it to be its own episode. You probably could have told this story that you told within 15 minutes. You didn't need to go through the whole story with Nick. The flashbacks, I guess, were fine, but it didn't really make sense to me why they showed them. It just kind of felt like it was filling time for the episode. That's all it felt like to me. But I feel like this episode didn't need to be one episode. You could have still done all this stuff within the same episode. You could have even had, like, if you're going to have all this stuff with Nick, that's fine, but you could have had Nick actually transition into this community, and you could have had this be like the first 10 minutes of the episode or something like that. I thought it didn't need to be its own episode, pretty much. But there wasn't stuff I hated in this episode. I think what was disappointing was this was pretty much the mid-season finale, and I just kind of thought it was a disappointing mid-season finale that this was it. I think if this had just been a normal Fear the Walking Dead episode, it would have been a good episode. But it was a fine episode. It wasn't anything to hate. I think a lot of people, at least on IMDb, kind of trashed it. They gave it ones, threes, and fives. Somebody gave it a 9. It's not a 9, and somebody gave it an 8. But I didn't hate. I would say it's about a C episode. The critics praise it. It got it on Rotten Tomatoes. It got an 87% approval rating, and Matt Flower of IGN gave it an 8 out of 10. I don't know if it's an 8 out of 10. I don't think it's a good episode, but it's a fine episode. It's a nice, decent watch. It's probably going to end up being one of those episodes you can probably skip. I have a feeling it'll show episodes with Nick at the community, and if you skip this episode, you could pretty much just go watch clips of it, and you'd be all set. So it's not like one of those episodes you have to watch again. But if I had to rate this episode, I'm going to give it a C. It was an okay episode. I'm going to give it just a regular old C. It was an okay episode, but a disappointing mid-season premiere, and a disappointing and just kind of an episode that didn't really need to exist. But it was an okay episode. I give it a C. But that's pretty much my thoughts on this episode. I pretty much broke it down in 12 minutes too. So please make sure, though, you guys like, comment, and share this video so people will watch it. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more content and click on the bell, so that way every time I upload a video, you guys will get the notifications for it. Make sure you guys do the same thing for my CM Brothers YouTube channel. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.